Welcome aboard Philadelphia's heritage trolley that isn't a tourist attraction, and isn't consistently operated with trolleys either. This is the G, one of SEPTA's crosstown routes run with a mix of buses and rebuilt mid-century PCC streetcars, where regular passengers can sometimes ride on historic vehicles, if they time it right. I'm doing that today with renowned trolley enthusiast Jackson Betz. But how did SEPTA keep PCC trolleys running here? How can you actually find an operating trolley? And is Jackson Betz getting bugged driving up and down the same old strip?
I gotta find a new place where the kids are hip.
Well, he just answered that last question, but for the rest, the only way to find out is to go for a ride. The G is the longest trolley line in the city of Philadelphia, running 8.4 miles east-west down Richmond Street and Girard Avenue, the latter of which gives us its name, the G, which it acquired as part of the SEPTA Metro rebrand in 2025. It's most easily reached by the B and L subways from Center City, the latter of which I'm hopping on now. This takes me to Girard and Front, where I head down to the trolley platform. Headed in the opposite direction is PCC 3 car 2337, painted in a green and cream livery, reminiscent of the old Philadelphia Traction Company.
Oh, you got it sparking. There goes perfection.
And you are?
I'm Jackson.
A few moments later, a westbound trolley arrives. Though it's an old car, it sports a modern LED display on the front. The interior is still very classy. Here we see a typical platform for the 4-lane portion of Girard, in between 2 lanes of traffic. These are built to accommodate wheelchair lifts, which were installed on the cars as part of a retrofit alongside generous accessible seating, meaning these are currently the only accessible trolleys in Philadelphia. Unfortunately, these types of lifts, as seen here in New Orleans, can significantly prolong dwell time compared to modern low-floor light rail vehicles, and SEPTA has indeed ordered trolleys from Alstom to eventually replace the PCCs here on Girard. Unfortunately, if you want to ride these historic trolleys, you might not always be in luck.
Finding PCCs is kind of a struggle because SEPTA is right now implementing a workflow where they kind of integrate them with buses on the 15/G line. So in order to find when PCCs are running, you kind of have to keep an eye on the tracker. So Caleb and I were very fastidious about making sure trolleys were actually running today before we met up.
If you look at the G on a transit tracking app like Transit App or SEPTA's own website, keep an eye out for 4-digit vehicle numbers beginning with 2, because those are PCCs. But what is a PCC anyway?
Okay, so usually when we talk about transit vehicles, we talk about vehicles in terms of brand. We talk about Nova Bus or New Flyer or whatever. PCC is not a brand like Toyota or something like that, or Volvo, PCC is kind of a licensed design that multiple manufacturers license. So PCC stands for President's Conference Committee. In the mid-30s, a bunch of presidents of North American transit authorities, I think Boston was one, Pittsburgh, maybe New York, got together and were like, you know what, we need this standardized design for a streetcar that we all can use, because it's the 30s, everything is streamlined, everything is Art Deco now, and frankly, the streetcars we have currently aren't really up to the task. So they all got together and they designed this very streamlined, aerodynamic streetcar that had features that were supposedly industry standard at the time. We're talking driver foot controls so that drivers can take fares with their hands. And what basically happened was they copyrighted the design, and then a couple of manufacturers licensed the design and began manufacturing them. So there were 2 companies that made PCCs. One was Pullman, which is the classic train car manufacturer, and the other was the St. Louis Car Company, which made almost all of the ones that are located in Philadelphia. The car we're on right now, as with all current Philadelphia PCCs, the body of the car was manufactured in St. Louis in 1947 to 1948. And then what happened is SEPTA actually used these cars as part of their regular fleet. This car would have originally been assigned to Route 23 when it was delivered. It was the longest streetcar line in the world, and Route 23 used these cars until 1992 when they were retired. Between 1997 and 2005 or so, SEPTA had these cars manufactured at a place called Brookville, and it got 18 of them redone. And in 2005, they re-debuted on Route 15, which we're riding now. And then in 2020, the cars were pulled from service again because they couldn't pass inspection. And this time, SEPTA rehabilitated them themselves. Like, SEPTA repaired these cars completely in-house. The PCC we're on right now, the shell of it was built in 1947 or 1948, but it's basically a brand new streetcar inside a vintage shell. So the foot controls aren't present anymore. The driver drives this like a regular streetcar. So the car has been pretty heavily modified, but the fact that it's still running in a 1940s shell is pretty nifty.
Girard College basically breaks Girard Avenue in half at this point, so we turn down South College Avenue. Continuing on to Poplar Street, we quickly turn north onto West College Street, and then west onto Girard again. We cross over the Schuylkill River and under the Amtrak Northeast Corridor.
So right now we're passing through the zoo area. Like the area on Girard between, say, 40th and 34th is probably one of the biggest reasons why this trolley is not the best alternative as opposed to buses on this line. As you can see, the trolley tracks right there are shared by the left turn lane. You see how all sorts of vehicles are like waiting to turn left in the trolley right away?
So it's hard to see here, but I just saw a sign on the overhead wire that says trolley only. And there's a car right beneath it.
In Philadelphia, traffic rules are merely suggestions. So therefore, we are officially traveling in a right-of-way that is reserved for trolleys only. However, as you can see, left, right, and center, you can probably stick a camera out the window right now and see an example of it. There are cars in the right-of-way that is posted as being only for the trolley.
Is that the Keystone Corridor?
That is the Keystone Corridor, yeah. The Paoli-Cordell line goes under there.
Nice.
Keystone and everything. So we're almost at Lancaster Ave, which means it's time for one of my favorite spots on the line. We do a little dog leg, as it's called, and we intersect the Ted Trolley, otherwise known as the T1.
We turn onto the short Lancaster Avenue segment, where a T1 car passes us heading towards the Center City Tunnel.
Is that a 15 literally following us?
So that's one of the problems. See, because of the things I mentioned earlier, like the left turn lanes and like the inflexibility of going around parked cars, trolleys get really backed up on this line. Mm-hmm. So often you'll find a situation where the PCC will be at the head of a bunch with like a bus or two behind it. As much as I love these trolleys and I love these vehicles very much, unfortunately buses give you better service. If you get on a 15 bus as opposed to a 15 trolley, you are getting to your destination faster. That one we just saw brings us to a total of 5 PCCs that are out currently, which is like one of the larger numbers I've seen recently, so I guess we filmed this on a good day.
We're now coming close to the end of the line, which makes a loop around multiple blocks. Westbound trolleys turn down Haverford, then down 63rd, with the track connection up 63rd to the T1, and then back onto Girard, the layover location where we get off. The trolley pulls forward, and the bus that's been following us on the same route pulls in moments later. Eastbound down Girard, we pass tracks leading south to Callow Hill Depot, where cars for the G and T1 are stored.
So the driver had to, in this really busy intersection, get out and manually change the switch?
Exactly. Because the track we're on right now is used by both the 15 and the 10, or rather the G and the T1, which go in different directions from the intersection.
If you'd like to ride Philadelphia's elusive PCC trolleys, use a digital tracker to look out for those 4-digit vehicle numbers beginning with 2. If you're visiting from out of town and are not sure what dates or times have your best odds of riding a trolley, reach out to local rail fans because there are tons of them, including on my Discord.
Bye, Jackson.
Hi, Kayla.
Philly's vintage streetcars are a wonderful anomaly in the world of transit, and while the accessibility-minded side of me is excited for when Girard Avenue can finally become a modern light rail corridor, the foamer side of me is very glad I got to ride these vehicles when I did.